Hey guys, today's layout is a one-page layout featuring our son and his wife's new home as part of the monthly YouTube scrapbook sketch hop. Hi, I'm Katie Taylor at scrappinkaty.com/home, where I show you how to preserve your family's memories through the art of scrapbooking.
Let's take a look at gathering together right quick, only because some of the papers are just gorgeous and I wanted to show them in full 12 by 12 sheets before I start using them. So you can see this one side has these kind of leaf pattern going across. You could do horizontal or vertical. This also has a corresponding embossing folder, so I love that. And then the back side is this leaf pattern, just various leaves. You've got some mushrooms in there, and then I love the gold detail. Hopefully you're picking up on that. And then we've kind of got this dark espresso wood pattern, very pretty. And then of course this green, and look, it also has the gold, and it can be vertical or horizontal. And then we've got kind of this subdued, kind of very vanilla, I believe is the color. No, maybe not. Basic beige. So we've got that. It definitely has a pattern. It's like little squares, rectangles with a little burst. You're probably not going to be able to see that. But the back side is another leaf pattern. This one doesn't have the green like the one before. So see the difference, the green and the yellow? This one doesn't have that one. But again, it still has the mushrooms, and then it has the gold detail. And then you've got an espresso, and I love this one. It's almost like a pebble path. Can you see all those irregular circles? And then the back is just a really good plaid, and it's got the gold. And then we've got this plaid. No gold touches to this. And then you've got the gold touches on the back. And what I love about this is the gold touches again match that embossing folder. And then in between are just subtle tone on tone leaves. And then you've got acorns and mushrooms. But can y'all see that? Love it. And then we've just got a good wood grain in the basic beige. And then the back side is another leaf pattern with the gold veins and the florals. So to pick out which papers I'm cutting to which sizes, I wanted to bring out the photo that I'm going to use. And then that way I can kind of put this photo against each one of these patterns, and I can decide, because you definitely have, even though I'm kind of flipping and reimagining this one, you definitely have this bold behind it. So I'm going to pick it first, and then we're going to kind of go with the other ones that are kind of in the background. So to do that, I usually just take my photo and I put it on each piece. So I'm kind of liking that this color brings out the stripe in my daughter-in-law's sweater. We've got this one, definitely busier, but it's still not out. We've got this one. And I mean, that might work. I might have to matte this on white, which y'all know me, I'm probably going to anyway. We've got this one. I'm not a big fan of this one. We've got this one, which is really neutral. And then we've got this one. And then we have this one, which I'm kind of liking that. It might have to do with the irregular dots. I don't know about this simply because, you know, you've already got a grid in the windows. You've already got the bricks, even though I like that the bricks kind of bring out that basic beige. This might have to be a back pattern. I like the color of this one. I think it brings out not only this bush, but again, her daughter's shirt and then Justine's shirt. Kind of like that. Kind of like that. And again, I think the leaf patterns are going to have to be in the background. So So I'm just going to pull the ones that I like, and then we can always decide, because you know, even though this one's going to be back behind here, you can also pull in those patterns that are going to kind of make it where this neutral isn't just so bland. Okay, so I am building everything on a white piece of cardstock. Now, you'll notice that a lot of these colors are not white. You've got the basic beige in there, but I have matted my photo on a white piece of cardstock, which is just my MO. But also sometimes when you use the starkness of the white base, then it just kind of makes these lighter colors pop. So that's why I chose the white one. I'm also going to be doing some stamping, maybe some slight mixed media just around the edges of this little cluster. I've pulled out the lovely florals and the gathering moments to get that done. But before we do that, I kind of need a loose representation of where this is going to go. So I'm thinking there. And then the title, the sketch calls for the title across, which is going to be a good thing because I'm going to try everything in my power to hide this little thing. And I think I can do it by making the title go off of my photo and using that dead space right there for my title. So I am happy with that placement. So I am just going to loosely make some pencil marks. And that way I will know where to stamp. So I don't know if you can see them, but they're pretty light. So we've got those pencil marks there. To decide on a color, I'm just going to turn this over right quick. And I'm going to bring out a couple of colors. We've got Wild Wheat, which I know is not really in this collection, but it's kind of a lighter color. I really don't want something as dark as Espresso on here. And then I'm going to bring out Close to My Heart's Toffee. And I think that's it. I want to stick in the brown family. So I think that that's it. And I am just going to use one of these very open stamps on the back side of this to decide where I want. So y'all can see this is so new that I haven't even done anything with this one. I'm just going to peel that one back. Oops. Literally had an avalanche of stuff. Sure y'all can relate to that. Okay, so we're gonna go with Wild Wheat. I'm just gonna stamp in the middle in case it bleeds over to the other side. I know that my photo mats are gonna hide it. And then I'm also trying different stamps because I don't know which one I want to use yet. So that kind of helps me. I can see how it's going to look. I absolutely love this little pattern. And I'm going to try it in the toffee. Oh, it's very weathered. I really like that. Okay, I'm going to let this dry back just a little bit so we can kind of get a true color. And then put these papers back by that and see which one looks better. Okay, so it's dried back a little bit. So we've got this, and then of course we have these leaves. And I am thinking that I like that one. I think we're going to go with the toffee. So I'm going to turn this back over where I have my lines and get it the right side up. And then I'm just going to start stamping these things. Now I am going to use both images. And I think these are going to be straight. And the other one is going to be kind of catty corner. And I do not care if they don't stamp evenly.
Now is a good time to remind you that, again, this is part of a YouTube sketch hop that I do with a few of my crafty friends. You will find a playlist in the description below, so you can just expand that description and you can head on over and see what the other girls made. They posted on Friday, and you'll also find all the products that I used if they are still available.
I'm going to pull out one other one. It's the Elements of Text. This is no longer available. But if you have it, then definitely this is good for that. And I'm still going with the same color, so it'll kind of be a tone on tone. And I'm going to try to go over these images so they're not so circular, if that makes sense. Mimic the gold in that pattern paper, since I don't have much that's showing through, I am going to be using these. I'll leave these linked down below. And I'm pretty sure I'm just going to be using this one. Not the gold, but I think that one will do enough. Okay, so I'm going to be using a painter, and so all you're going to do is, how I do it, is I just get something with water and then put it in here, and if you'll squeeze it, then it sucks water up into the tube. The hole is pretty small. You could also, if you have you know, something that just barely has a drip, you could do that, or maybe a funnel. We've got that. I spilled just a little bit. And so then I also like to take one of my sprays and just spray in here. You could also just squeeze your painter. Brush size really doesn't matter. Just gonna move that around. I'm really starting to notice that it is starting to hydrate, so that's good. Once it's all good and mixed, you just sprinkle. This is also going to fill up some of the white space that we had. I need to definitely move that out of the way. One thing about splatters is you never know where they're going to land. So if this is an afterthought, your photos are already on your layouts, you want to make sure you're covering those. If it's like I'm doing, just make sure it's out of the way. Also, if you'll do it up, if you're using a wide painter, if you do it up and down, you're a little more controlled. And I think that's it. I really wanted to keep the splatters just around the stamped parts. So that is that. And let's see, it's not dry yet, but can you see? That's going to look really, really good with that leaf pattern. And then to clean this brush, you just get either a paper towel or an extra piece of cardstock, and you just go over and over, squeeze some water if you need to until it's all out. You can also just go run it under your faucet. Also, if you have multiple painters, you may want to use one for metallics, because this definitely will have some residual of the metallic in there. And then you can have a painter for other things. So I'm going to let this dry. I should have been on my glass board, but I think that this will wipe up good enough just on my wood plank. While that is drying, I can emboss this piece with that leaf embossing folder I was telling you about. This is the Gathering Leaves. Guess I haven't opened this yet. And then I'm also going to go ahead and look at title options and then maybe go ahead and get my title cut. I am planning on either using the party alphabet, it's large though, or the mini alphabet. So can you see the leaf pattern? I love it. And I do want the leaves going up and down because this is going to be going across. So I am going to stick that in there. Just to be safe, I am going to move this one down in case I do need a longer piece. And I'm going to move this one up. And that way I can emboss both. So we're going to try the sandwich for 3D, I guess. And that is going to be the one. I'm going to run it through twice. Now I did use the two-tone cardstock just in case if I wanted to sand it depending on how it looks. So don't you just love that? I don't know what my title is going to be yet, but I'm just trying to see if I used this big one. I think it's a little bit too big. But I think it fills that nicely. But see, I think this one is too small. I mean, of course, this paper selection is not really where it's at, but... Okay, let me decide on my title first, and then we will go from there. Okay, so that is dry. And I am going to start layering these together. Now, because the majority of this is going to be hidden, I'm just going to move it down just a little bit, and again take my pencil and I'm going to mark so I can cut this, because the back side of this is one of those, can't find a pencil, is one of those pretty patterns. And then that way I can save some of this. You could also do this with scissors. It's easier for me to just do it with a paper trimmer. And plus I know that that way this is straight. So we've got that. I am going to add some 3D foam tape to this, because I want to be able to tuck some things underneath this little thing. So I'm going to add it right here. And then I'm also going to add it to my finished piece. But I don't want to do that quite yet, but I do want to go ahead and get these pieces done. And then we have these pieces. Oh, I think I like that. I am going to sand this.
I know some of you have an aversion to sandpaper, so I have muted this, sped it up a little bit, but with our white core, you can take any grit of sandpaper and you can just file that down or sand that down and see the pattern from the white core of the cardstock.
Could maybe get away with this one. So I think I am going to cut this in half. And then I can dovetail this side. Now you just want to keep in mind that you're going to be dovetailing opposite sides. So the leaf pattern is still up. So if you remember the sketch had a big circle right there, I instead am going to use a leaf, and I don't think I'm going to use the stitching. So how this works is you put both of these in your die cut machine and then run it through, and then it doesn't cut out the inside part, it just cuts the holes. So it's twofold, which I love that option, but I think I'm just going to go with the basic, no holes. I am going to just stamp some of these leaves and then die cut them out. So I've pulled out Sundance from Close to My Heart because I don't have, I think it's crushed curry. And then I pulled out Old Olive. And then I have a Stampin' Spot of Cajun Craze and Early Espresso. Now usually on my leaves I like to kind of do a two-toned, but because this pattern paper doesn't have two-toned, I'm just going to go in with the leaf, the stamp. But I would also like to point out that you can see here in just a second that there's already kind of a built-in shading to these. So we're going to try Sundance first. So see how there's dark and light spots? That means that there's dark and light, or just kind of like, it's not divots, but it's just the way the stamp is made. I absolutely love this feature of Stampin' Up! Stamps. So then we're also going to come in with some of the other images, and I'm just going to fill up this little piece and then maybe some other pieces and get those stamped down. Okay, so I'm going to do some additional stamping just right down here. Again, just kind of repeating what I've already done up there. And then I'll do the words, but I'm not sure that it's actually going to kind of show up. But just to be consistent. And then it's not going to have the gold specks, but that's okay. Okay, so we've got that done. And then I am going to stamp. This leaf is going to be my journaling. I'm not going to have a whole lot of journaling because this is kind of like the cover page of our trip. But I am going to use the Just a Note. And I think I'm going to stick with the toffee ink. I need to decide what angle I'm going to do it because I don't want my journaling to be crooked. I want my journaling to be straight, if that makes sense. So we'll do that. I'm going to add some toffee ink around the edges. I don't know if you noticed, but I did add espresso ink around these pieces. So that's going to be there. I'll fill up that void by doing some random things here in just a second. Okay, so let's bring this back. So we've got that. I want one each of these down here in this corner, and then I'm going to have the rest right there. And then I did stamp this and die cut it out, but I think I'm going to stamp it directly onto my layout base using my little Early Espresso Stampin' Spot. Just going to stamp a few more. Like I think I want those to go there. And then I'm going to have some up here. That's it for the stamping. And then now I can just kind of decide how I want this to go. A lot of times you can put your things together and then just do your tape runner right across, and it keeps them together. Got to be careful of really, really sticky. And we can always trim the bottoms off. think I'm going to add just a little dimensional element right behind that one. Okay, I am going to stabilize this by die cutting these pieces that come with your pattern paper, your DSP, or your cardstock. I like to die cut that same image a couple of times, and it just kind of adds some sturdiness, because there are different levels because of the dimensional elements that I used, and that way when I come back and I journal, it'll be a lot better than having to kind of go over those bumps. So we've got both of those cut. We can just adhere them together. You can either use tape adhesive, liquid adhesive. Just don't use any more 3D foam or dimensionals. I'm going to be putting that right there, and then let's figure out where I'm going to put these. Again, use the same dimensionals to kind of pop those up on the ends. This one kind of cut weird, so I'm going to try to hide this part. So when you have various levels of dimension, it's better if you put your dimensional tape on your project base, and then that way you don't have to worry about putting the tape somewhere where it doesn't belong. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so we have that. That's pretty straight. And then we have home. Now I wanted to try something with the home, and I am going to wrap some of the ends with this gold thread, and then I'm also going to put some gold thread kind of around the leaves. But let's say that I want to, on home, let's say that I want to wrap three times. And then I'm going to use tear tape just on the back of here. And then I like to take your pick tool, and you can just peel away that backing. And then I can start here. So I'm going to go ahead and get that adhered down, and then it makes it really easy to just wrap this around. And then if I'm using 3D foam, then I can just put it directly over that. So I can put it as close or as far away as possible. I'm kind of liking the close but just barely spaced. So I'm going to just repeat that with these and kind of move around where I put the gold thread.
So I have finished wrapping all of that. I'm going to adhere this H down. That one does have 3D foam tape on it. And then I'm also going to take that same gold thread, and I'm going to be adding it around the leaf clusters. So what I like to do with this thread, because it is kind of stiff, is I like to tie a bow and then fold the bow basically in half right around the knot. Then you can put that knot onto some glue dots. These are the larger ones. And then you can just lift that entire little bow up using the end of your take your pick tool. I usually like to have the spatula adaptation on here, but because I'm also going to add some dots here in a second, I was just being lazy and tried to use my little pick. So again, you're going to tie a bow and then go ahead and fold that in half, get that adhered down to a glue dot, and then attach it. Now, while I'm doing this, I did kind of want to walk you through what we were celebrating. this is actually, of course, our oldest son and his wife. They bought a new home, and my mother-in-law is just an amazing baker and cook. And so one thing that our son was adamant about is the first Thanksgiving in their new home. He wanted all of us to come down and he wanted my mother-in-law to cook. Now, he did do the turkey. It was so good, but we just gathered around their new home, blessed it, and then ate. Her parents, her family came over, and it was just amazing to celebrate that occasion with them. Now I'm going to take out the Cajun craze and gold dots, and I'm just going to apply those or adhere those down around those clusters. There are 3 sizes to these, and y'all know that I love that. So I'm going to use one of each size around the clusters and then also around those little pennants and the title. So I am pretty much done with that, but I'm still thinking that this dark early espresso piece that's behind the photo, it needs something. So I thought I was going to tear it and do kind of a peekaboo part, but then I decided to pull out some pattern paper, some DSP, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and add some little strips behind the photo. So I've decided to tear it right past the crushed curry line that's through it, again, to bring out the color of the leaves and then our daughter's shirt. So I'm just going to trim that right past that, and then I'm going to cut these in various lengths, and one will be tucked in behind the photo on the top left, and then I'm going to do a smaller piece to the bottom right of the photo. And then that is pretty much it. Let me pick up this layout and let you look at all the layers. I love that large leaf with the journaling lines, and then of course that embossing folder with the sanded parts, and then the gold splatter, and then the random stamping. Here's a closer look at that gold splatter, and then I love the little clusters with that gold thread peeking out from behind them. Remember that you can expand the description below. You'll find all the products that I used if they are still available. If you are not in a position to order from my website, you can always just subscribe, tell your friends about my channel so they can subscribe, like, and then leave a comment. Don't forget that you will find a playlist for all of the rest of the YouTube Sketch Hop participants down below. And I just want to thank y'all for watching on this Sunday afternoon, or if you're starting your early week and watching it later. Thanks so much for stopping by and watching.